Hello, hello. Let's go, guys. Podcast energy. What's up?
There you go. There you go. It's not live though.
Nice.
We're gonna
That
edit it afterwards, but it's gonna be fun nevertheless. Hi everybody, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Bottom Club today to another episode. My name is Yossi Garmazi, and I'm joined also by a good friend of mine, Jason Wolf. Jason.
So great to be here. I'm a super user of Speechify, Cliff's app, so super excited for this one.
Absolutely. So today we are fortunate enough to interview indeed none other than Cliff Weitzman, founder and CEO of Speechify, a company that uses AI to turn text into speech and make reading more accessible and efficient for over 56 million users all over the world. So Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, guys. Any specific direction you want to take it?
For the get-go, we want to take it more to how you started Speechify, a little bit about the product overall, and then about the space. I guess we could also flow from there to make it as conversational.
Keep it pretty short and tight then. Hey, my name is Cliff Weitzman. I'm the founder of Speechify. I started Speechify. Originally, I built the MVP for it when I was 17. So I moved to the United States when I was 13 from Israel. And I'm extremely dyslexic and have ADHD. So when I was growing up, I loved stories, but I hated books. And so my dad would read books to me. And every night I'd fall asleep listening to his voice. And he has a very deep voice. And when I moved to the States, I didn't know what black was, didn't know what white was, but I knew who Hermione was, and I knew who Hagrid was. And so I listened to the Harry Potter audiobooks in English. And I listened to the first one 22 times in a row, still have the first chapter memorized. And I just fell in love with books. So I started listening to 2 audiobooks a week every week. I still do that. So more than 100 books a year. I'm 2,000 plus books in now. And I learned how to listen fast. So in the beginning, I would listen at 0.75x speed because I didn't speak English. But then I sped up to 1x and then 1.5 and 2x and 2.25 and 2.5 and 3x and 3.5. And so I listened very, very fast. Turns out that the average American reads at about 180 to 200 words per minute. If you're dyslexic, you typically read at about 140 or 150 words per minute. And the reading speed typically comes from the speaking speed. So you can't speak much faster than 250 words per minute because your tongue doesn't have the dexterity to go faster and still be legible.
Right.
But you can listen a lot faster. Like the little hairs in your ears don't have a problem. And so if a computer is speaking really fast and does have the dexterity to do that, you can perceive. And so what happened is I coached myself little by little. The first thing that I did is Speechify highlights words on the screen for you. So I could follow with my eyes. It's almost like training wheels for listening. The second thing is it would happen very gradually. So because I have keyboard shortcuts in Speechify, if a specific sentence was really complicated, I'd slow it down. And if it was really easy, like a Facebook post, I'd speed it up really, really fast. And it's exactly like Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile. Nobody had done it before. And then next year, 50 people ran a 4-minute mile. So all my friends happen to listen really, really fast because they see me doing it all the time. And it doesn't matter if I'm in a restaurant and I'm reading the menu, or if I'm at home and I'm reading a book or responding to an email, I'm just always listening very quickly. There's also a big difference between listening for enjoyment and listening in order to be able to respond. So when I'm going through emails, I can go at 900 words per minute because I don't need to remember for forever what Jason sent me in his email. I just need to tell him that I'm free to meet at 3 p.m. on Wednesday. And so that is actually a really easy way of getting yourself to be very fast. The other place is, let's say you're reading a contract. There's only one segment of the contract where there's going to be a got you that you need to be able to rephrase. And so you're just listening very fast for the first maybe 2 pages, and 75% through the third page, you might find a spot that requires you to make some edit. The same thing is true if you're reading back your own writing. So a ton of the consumption on Speechify is people listening to their own works, and typically people use it as a proofreading mechanism. Sometimes when you're reading with your eyes and you already wrote it with your finger and your eyes, you might miss grammar mistakes or even just like changes in tone, but you'll hear them when you listen. The same thing is true. We'll see a lot of actors using Speechify for scripts. It just makes it a lot easier to play against Speechify as opposed to playing against yourself. And so those were the first things. At the same time, when I was in university, I built 36 different products, everything from 3D printed skateboard brakes to iPhone apps and websites and payment systems. And that's how I was paying for school at Brown. And in 2015, I read a paper out of DeepMind called WaveNet about autoaggressive speech. And I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I wrote a large kind of 30-page document about all my worldviews when I was graduating. When I was 30, turned 30 last year, I was very bummed that I was turning 30. I didn't yet accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. So I spent 3 days in a cabin off a river in the UK, and I wrote out a list of the 200 people that I thought had impacted the world the most by the age of 35. And I mapped for every person how I thought they got to that stage and what is missing for me. And so I started kind of working on a bunch of other elements of my life that I wanted to improve to get there. A lot of them are Speechify oriented, some of them are art oriented, some of them are spirituality oriented, some of them are family oriented. So that was very helpful too. Now there's about 200 folks who work at Speechify inside of our AI engineering team or software engineering team. The goal obviously is still to make sure that reading is never a barrier for learning for anyone, no matter what your background is. But we have a pretty interesting approach where last year we had 178,000 people apply to the open engineering positions at Speechify. We hire people all over the world. If you're super talented, we'll find you. And we do speech to text in addition to text to speech. We do duplex audio models. We spend a lot of time. There's like a new feature now that we're building around agents that I'm really excited about. And so a lot of it is the future of education. So how do you show not just that the person has read it, so proof of consumption, but proof of knowledge, right? Like how can you like definitively show that the person actually comprehended? And so some of that is what we think about a lot. We're massive users of Cloud Code and Codex inside of the company. We teach our teams how to use those tools really well and fast. And so that allows for really, really fast product innovation. And the game really has changed in a lot of ways.
Right.
When you look at the impact that you can have with LLM-based coding, it's so much easier to ship things to production, but it mainly makes it easy to take things from 0 to 1. For companies that are already scaled, for us, for example, we have 60 million users, it allows us to ship features faster, but it's very expensive to ship something that doesn't work amazing. And so though you might be able to technically get it in front of a user, the edge cases and the bugs are not completely solved. And even if you set up a system where it has its own browser and it can run unit tests and it can check, and you almost kind of like have a reinforcement loop, you're still not going to nail all those bugs. And so something we'll do is like we'll see all the customer support inquiries coming in. We'll look for an analysis of what bugs are prevalent, and then we'll have Cloud Code issue a PR and someone will review it. Still, the thing that I'm missing the most inside of the company are really strong outcome owners. And I think that that's more and more what you're going to see into the future is these really strong generalists who are not just good at customer acquisition and not just good at quality assurance and not just good at product and at, using modern tools in order to ship code to production. It's the entire outcome ownership in one single individual.
I was wondering, now everyone knows Speechify, very successful, but looking back, was there any special time or the toughest moment when things actually didn't go according to plan?
That's always the case. I'll share two. The first one is, and this is probably the most important, actually, it's not the most important decision I made, but it's one of the most important ones. I was going to graduate from school. I was 21, 22 years old. I had studied renewable energy engineering. And I thought that, it would take me probably 7 years to build a company in either solar or nuclear that was able to move the needle in a meaningful way. But I also noticed that software just moves so much faster. It moves even faster today. And I'm not a particularly patient person. So I thought to myself, okay, this is a better industry to pick, at least for the first company I'm going to start. The second thought that I had is a lot of my friends were going and doing masters. They went and got a job at Google or Amazon or Facebook or Palantir or Goldman. And I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to work on my own things, and I had a few things that I'd already built. And so I chose to stay on campus because I really liked where I went to school at Brown. I was a visiting scholar, so I would guest teach some classes. But mainly, I just worked on my own things. Basically, I was unemployed. But I really, really loved it. The challenge there was keeping myself disciplined. So I had a buddy that I met at 9 a.m. every day to work out with, because if I didn't meet him, I would just sleep in. And I would not meet him at the gym, because if he was already at the gym, I could kind of like skip and it's fine. I'd meet him like on the street, like on a random street corner. And so then I'm having my buddy wait on the street corner. So like, that's not okay. So it started there. We'd go to the dining hall, I'd grab some food, and then I just work in the dining hall until it closed. And then like we'd stay up working like pretty late. And I had a group chat with a bunch of other friends who I thought very highly of that I would keep updated on what I was doing. And I'd say, hey, I'm going to code for 5 hours a day, every single day. And I track it with rescue time on my computer. And if I ever missed a day, I'd need to do, I think it was 100 pull-ups and 200 push-ups by 10 a.m. the next morning. And if I ever missed that, I'd need to run 10 miles that weekend. And I did end up running a couple of times, but I never missed the running. And I'd commit to say, I'm going to post an MVP and I'm going to put it in a bunch of Reddit groups and a bunch of Facebook groups. And typically, it's always like a specific number, like 5. I'd go and do that. I'd go and visit a bunch of conferences for people with learning differences. So I wouldn't say that that was a difficult time as much as it required a lot of self-discipline. At that time, what was difficult is I found it challenging to find people to hire because I didn't have crazy pedigree. I had a lot of people who I thought were really smart, but convincing them to come all the way on was challenging. Instead, what happened is I just became very self-capable. And with time, I found the right people. And so we had folks like Simon who joined, who's today our COO. He's been with us for 8 years plus. No, my brother Tyler joined 5 years in. And so he leads all of our AI team and innovations there. And now like the team is like super stacked, but it took a while. The place that probably was the most difficult is before we had real product market fit, people would not retain properly, and mainly because there were a lot of bugs. And so what I realized is that because people were signing up with their Apple email, that's an Apple ID. So you can call it with FaceTime or FaceTime audio. So I would just every day I'd sit and I would call people who had had the product for 30 days on FaceTime audio. And be, hey, this is Cliff. I'm the founder of Speechify. Noticed you stopped using the product. Can you tell me why? And they're like, well, your product sucks. And I'm like, well, which part of it sucks? Like, well, you scan it and nothing happens. Like, oh, that sucks. Like, what did you scan? And so I just like figure out what the issues were and then I'd fix them. And I think that level of product obsession is really required. The other thing that I did is typically companies will run their customer support on intercom or email. We ran it on iMessage. So if you click support, it would open an iMessage modal. You'd message a text and it would go to my phone number. And then I just respond on texts. And if it was like 3 a.m, I'll respond. And you didn't need to enable notifications. And it's going to your iMessage as a blue bubble. So like you'd respond. So I had a really good tight cycle of talking to users.
And you mentioned Intercom. We're actually going to host the president in a couple of weeks. So we'll talk a lot about all their go-to-market. But I was also curious, was there any specific channel that surprised you most in terms of its growth metrics, something, or again, that you didn't expect it to be as successful as it now? I don't know, was it forums or like Reddit or something else?
Yeah, I mean, more than 10% of our users come from organic ChatGPT. So that's obviously something we didn't make a call of originally. It just happens to be that we're in a category where we are by far the market leader. And so if you are looking for a text-to-speech tool, Speechify is what you would use. And the traffic that comes from LLMs to me ended up being surprising. I did not expect it to, I didn't call that ChatGPT would get as big as it did back in 2016 before Transformers were even invented. So that to me was cool.
Over the past year, which product announcements, if you can share with us, or company milestone, do you think actually that the market underestimated the most regarding Speechify?
I mean, look, we started as an AI company back in 2015. So at the time, deep learning was the term people would use better than, a generative AI. And the term was specifically narrow applications of deep learning. And at the time, I was really excited about applications to transcription, translation, natural language processing, recommendation engines, et cetera, and obviously speech. And so we started working on those models back in the day. And with time, we just focus on the same product. So it's not like there's product announcements that we do that are particularly novel. It's just that we focus on nailing the basics. The mission of the company today is exactly the same mission that the company had in 2015. And the form factor is basically exactly the same. At the time, we were trying to do a lot more Mac-based, and then we shifted to iOS, and we still do both. But like really, the vision was make it so that you can read anything on any platform really, really well. We had like a little side. We have Studio, which makes it easy to create stuff, but that's not a big part of the platform. The majority of the platform is just making sure that you can listen to things very, very well.
100%. But if you need now to choose, we speak with a lot of tech entrepreneurial founders, executives, and we talk a lot about the mode of the company. If you need to choose, what is the mode of Speechify? Is it the voice library, maybe celebrity partnerships?
Just having a great product. Just having a great product.
Great product and be customer centric, I guess.
That's a big part of it. I mean, the way you get to a really good product is you talk to users a lot and you solve their problems and you figure out what the challenges are.
When you reflect back on the journey, is there a particular moment where you're like, wow, I made it, like Snoop Dogg is one of our voices, or a moment like that?
I really like that question. So I write a lot of music, and I was writing a song with a friend who's extremely talented. And so he wrote a line in one of our songs about Snoop Dogg. And I think the line was, and even Snoop can read to you. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I never even thought about that as like a milestone in the business because it's something that just happened very organically. When we were just starting, maybe like 6 months in, I did a talk at a school for kids with learning differences. And someone asked me, what's your plan? And I thought I'd have 1 million users by the end of the year. And I did not. I had maybe 10,000 users. Eventually we got to 1 million users, but it took much longer than I thought. Now we're at 60 million, but I thought we'd have 2 billion users by now. So that has moved slower. I think that the thing that has struck me the most is the quality of the team. And so one saying that I really live by is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with the team. And the amount of love that I have for the members of our team is so high. It's like they're my siblings. And I didn't start the company in order to build a community of people that were that level of close to me. But that's exactly what happened. And I think that that's one thing that's probably under cataloged when you tell the stories of founders, at least that's been the case for us, is I really found, like in no exaggeration, a second family in the team that I have built here at Speechify. And that is, to me, the most meaningful part.
Oh,
And it
that's
sounds so
incredible.
cheesy, but it's actually very true.
Hey, more cheese, the better. I know you've had built a bit of a relationship with Richard Branson, but is there any mentor, maybe it's him, that's influenced you the most on your journey?
I would say that the people who I learn the most from are friends of mine who are operators, and we're kind of in the trenches next to each other. So one of my best friends, or my best friend, is Valentin Perez, who went to Brown with me. So I was just having dinner with him last night. He runs another company called Studio, and like even now, I'm like learning new things from him. And I think that the best learnings are typically people who are one or two steps ahead of you is the best way to do it. The other place that I learn the most is just books. So I listen to 40 plus biographies a year. Highly recommend listening to How to Take Over the World by Ben Wilson and Founders by David Senra. Just unlimited amounts of learning. I think that if I had to pick one figure that I'm like emotionally connected to, it would be Alexander Hamilton, partly because of the Lin-Manuel Miranda musical. Another book that I always recommend that people typically under index on is Arnold Before He Was Famous, about Arnold Schwarzenegger, is a really good one, as well as the biography of Theodore Roosevelt. I think that those are the ones that I've probably picked up the most from.
Incredible. I love the idea of decentralized mentorship.
Yeah.
So just another one before we wrap. I know I've seen on your own IG, you're quite active, and you can see how you bring in music and into your marketing strategy
Yeah.
and your personality. It's quite incredible. But are there any hobbies outside of work, or have you just properly married hobbies with work
Oh, I like your
all around?
question. Yeah, well, so I do tricking at a very high level, which is like a combination of taekwondo and martial arts. And I've done that the entire time. The way that I keep track, and I'm into bodybuilding, I'm into dance, I'm into writing music. I have a sheet I keep called Elephants, where I track my goals in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 month, 3 year, 6 year, and 10 year increments across the categories I care about. So it might be romance, family, spirituality, art, business, fitness, lifestyle, etc. And I have goals in each one of those cubes. And every time I'm on a plane, I update it. And sometimes it's the case that I hit my goals. For example, I wanted to learn jujitsu, and sometimes I didn't. And so I didn't learn jujitsu. I learned a little bit. I got a lot better at guitar, and that makes me very happy. That's actually a really good example of something that I'm very passionate about that I haven't figured out how to weave into Speechify yet. But I never go and do something professionally that is not Speechify related. So in another life, maybe I would go, not maybe, I definitely want to still pursue a career in music, but that's not the priority. It's not on the front burner. It's very much on the back burner. But the ways in which I get to participate in music in a high level is I can use it to make our ads for Speechify. And so we've had maybe 3 songs that have done really, really well for us as ads, and hopefully we have more. And let me think if there's other the other hobby obviously is listening to audiobooks, but that's very much related.
Well, that's in keeping with who you are as the founder of Speechify. So I'm going to pass over to Yossi to close it off. Cliff, thanks.
So, Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really a pleasure. So, thank you so much. And for everybody else in the audience, so stay tuned. We have other amazing episodes to show you from the president of Cisco, co-founder and COO of GenSpark. So, it's going to be interesting. So, stay tuned.
Thank you so much for hosting this platform and doing such an amazing job sharing stories with people all over the world. It's really phenomenal.